We are back, ladies and gentlemen. So much has happened since the last time we were here. We had fight nights. We had the Ultimate Fighter. Fight Night 29, Maia Shields went down in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Damian Maia versus Jake Shields, 5-round main event bout. Glory made their Spike TV debut. Huge heavyweight tournament. We're talking about the results. Plus, fight of the week, Timothy Bradley versus Juan Manuel Marquez. We've got so much to talk about. There's so much you can't handle it. It's all coming up right here, right now on the final round. This is the final round, ladies and gentlemen. Your brand new combat sports podcast. We're bringing you the latest news and information on all things combative athletics. It is Sunday, October 13th, 2013, our fifth episode of the show. Once again, coming to you from lovely Long Island. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Ross Finkelstein, and you can find me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. It's been 2 weeks since we last took over your speakers to drop some combat sports knowledge, but fear not, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we have lots to talk about. Tonight will probably be the most versatile show we've put on yet because we're breaking down MMA, we're breaking down kickboxing, we're breaking down boxing. I cannot wait. Let's get right to it. First, we've got the host of the MMA podcast, which you can catch tomorrow night at 11:30, actually, not 12:30, 11:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Pacific. He's breaking down all the latest news. He's delivering you prime entertainment every Monday night. All you got to do is follow him on Twitter at the MMA Podcast. Joining us from Denver, Colorado, the Fresh Prince of Denver. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jake. Did we lose Jake? I think we lost Jake already. Well, we're already starting off with a good start. We've already lost Jake, so I'm just going to immediately switch to our other caller, also joining us tonight, our resident amateur fighter. He's getting ready for the Abu Dhabi trials, which take place actually 1 week from today. So this is fight week for him, and we'll actually talk about that in a little bit. But you can find him on Twitter at Yao_the_truth. Joining us from glorious Queens, New York, he is Yao the Truth.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. And I'm just happy to be on this podcast again. Strap in, ladies and gentlemen. Like Ross said, this would be a very versatile show. So sit back and enjoy.
Sit back and enjoy indeed. And when Jake is able to pop back on, we will formally introduce him again. But that being said, let's just get right to it. This past Wednesday, the UFC returned to Brazil for a Fox Sports 1 Fight Night card, and it was headlined, like I said, by jiu-jitsu masters Damian Maia and Jake Shields. Shields entered the fight as a 2-1 underdog, and he came off of a very unimpressive split decision win over Tyron Woodley back at UFC 161 in June. While Maia, on the other hand, he entered this fight on a 3-fight winning streak, 3-0 since dropping to welterweight, and he was in line for a title shot sometime in the future. But the hype train of Damian Maia, it came to a screeching halt after 5 very close rounds of action that saw Jake Shields awarded a very, very close split decision victory. You got lots of fans on one side who scored this fight for Maia. Same with the media. You have lots of media and fans who scored this fight for Shields, and there were a lot of people who scored this fight a draw. There's no true score to this fight. There's no distinct, decisive winner, because it was just so close. It depends how you scored a couple of rounds. Really, mainly the first and fifth round, I feel, are the two ones that are in the air. I personally felt that Damian Maia won this fight. I thought he won this fight 48-47. I gave him the first, I gave him the fourth, I gave him the fifth rounds. I thought the fifth was the closest. I didn't think the first was as close as people were saying. It was close, but I thought Damian won that round. The other two rounds, second and third, definitely Jake Shields. Fourth, definitely Damian Maia. Fifth was kind of shaky, but I gave it to Maia because of the fact that he just did a little bit more and Jake Shields just couldn't really do anything. But I want to get your guys' take. How did you score the fight? I guess we'll start with Yao because Yao was there. Yao, how did you score this fight?
This fight was very difficult to score, to be honest. It was very close. You know, you're talking about razor thin, but I can understand, the fifth round is the round that I definitely gave to Damian Maia because he went into the fifth and you could see that he really wanted to win it. So I definitely gave the fifth round to Damian Maia. I talked to some people I know. Some people scored the first, second, and third and fourth, differently. Some gave it to Maya, some gave it to Shields. But overall, it was very difficult for me to score. But I definitely gave the fifth round to Damian Maya.
Yeah, just so many scores, so many different opinions on this fight. I remember looking at my timeline during this fight on Twitter and just seeing 48-47 Maya, 49-46 Shields from a couple people, which were actually rather interesting to me. You had 48-47 Shields, you had 48-48. Just so many different scores, so many different ways you could score this fight. I believe Jake is back with us. Jake, we're talking about the main event from this past Wednesday. We're talking about Damian Maia versus Jake Shields. I wanted to get your opinion. How did you score the fight?
First and foremost, I want to say sorry. And of course, my new phone, the first time I tried doing the podcast on the phone, it craps out. Like, as you are about to say, what's up? Yeah, follow us on Twitter, DMA Podcast. Um, as far as Shields Maya goes, like the Gustafson Jones fight, I scored a 48-48. I saw the first round a draw. I gave rounds 2 and 3 to Jake, and I gave rounds 4 and 5 to Damien.
Yeah, there were many opinions the exact same way. A couple people from Sherdog had it. I don't remember exactly who. They had it 48-48. I saw, like I said before, lots on my timeline who had it 48-48. So just really no decisive score. And you're very right. It was very similar to the fight that we had just a few weeks ago between John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson, in the sense that the range of scores is just crazy. And even the boxing fight that went down last night, another huge range of scores. So judging, I mean, it's a problem. And when you've got fights this close, it's even worse because then you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. Damian Maia, though, like I said before, he was kind of in line for a future title shot at some point. 3-fight winning streak, 3-0, coming off that big win over John Fitch, absolutely dominated him. A win over Jake Shields would have really just put him maybe a fight away from the title shot, only because you got a couple other guys up there. But it was a split decision. It was a close fight. There were a lot of people who thought Damian won, myself included. How far back does this put Damian Maia after losing to an unranked opponent in Jake Shields? Jake Shields wasn't even ranked in the top 10 of the welterweight division or middleweight division before this fight. So how far back does this put Damian Maia?
Yeah, this is a huge setback for Damian Maia because, like you said, Jake Shields, although he was a big name, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, he isn't anymore. So to lose to a guy that's not, very high ranked is, kind of bad because this will be like a huge setback for him. So he'll definitely have to climb that ladder again.
Yeah, I mean, I think we likely see Shields move into the top 10 now. And I mean, this was nothing like him getting knocked out early in the fight by Marquardt. This was a very close fight that went to the judges' scorecards. I doubt the UFC puts a bum in front of Maya next. So I'm thinking that, I mean, it's all kind of relative on who the UFC matches him up against next, whether they give him a name or not. And I I think the UFC is wise enough to realize that losing a very close fight to a guy whose specialty is just neutralizing you. I would put him against a guy like Eric Silva, maybe a decent fighter.
Jake Shields. Let's talk about Jake Shields now, because he did get the W, and no matter what your opinion is on the fight, there is a W on his record, and he moves forward as such. So for him, he hasn't lost since he lost to Jake Ellenberger back in 2011. He beat Akiyama. He had the no contest against Ed Herman at middleweight, which should be a win. It was completely dominant, and we never found out what the substance he tested positive for, but it's assumed He tested positive for marijuana metabolites, which should not be a positive drug test, especially in a dominant performance like that. Probably his best performance in the UFC, although you could argue this one overtakes that at this point just because of what he was able to do to Damian Maia and neutralize the grappling. But now he's got a big win in the welterweight division. He's kind of back on the rise again. Jake Shields, is he looking at another run at the welterweight title?
No, I don't see Jake Shields running for the title again, because you have to remember that these top 5 guys or even top 8 guys at welterweight are, they're studs. These are really elite fighters, and I think Jake Shields has diminished somewhat. So I don't see him making a run for the title anymore.
Yeah, I definitely think he can rise to maybe even the top 5. I certainly thought Maia was a top 5 guy, and he took him out. But as far as him getting another title fight, I mean, that welterweight division is so stacked. You got Lawler, you got McDonald, you got George, you got Johnny, you got Carlos, you got Matt Brown. I don't really see Shields beating any of those guys. So as far as him knocking on the door and approaching that, yeah, maybe. But as far as him really cracking into the top and getting another title shot, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think even though he was able to get a victory over a tough guy in Damian Maia and probably the best grappler, in my opinion, in the UFC, he still is going to struggle with guys who can defend his takedowns because he's got this very awkward style of taking people down. He just grabs a hold of a leg and he basically just hugs you. He doesn't push forward. He doesn't drive his shoulder into you. He hugs the leg and kind of like hopes you fall down. So it's weird takedowns against someone like a Johnny Hendricks. He's not going to be able to do that, and he's probably going to get his lights put out. Now, where do both guys go? Because now I wouldn't say they're far apart in the division. Obviously, Jake Shields is slightly above Damian Maia right now. But I say slightly because, once again, it's a close fight, and I do think Damian Maia won the fight. Who are the next opponents you feel for these guys?
I believe that Damian Maia could fight, like Jake said, Eric Silva. I think that'll be a good opponent for him. If they don't mind, Brazilian versus Brazilian. And I think Jake Shields could fight who just knocked out Eric Silva, Dong-Hyun Kim. I think that's how you say his name. But yeah, they could fight each other.
I think that makes perfect sense. The winner and losers of each fight fighting each other, Eric Silva and Maia. You probably wouldn't want to put that fight on in Brazil, but I think both of them are decent names, and the UFC likes to put people coming off losses against each other and wins against each other. And I think Yum Yum Kim matched up against Jake Shields. I don't know I don't think they've fought, and I think Shields and Kim's judo could offer Shields a very interesting challenge.
It definitely could offer an interesting challenge, and actually that's a fight that I'd like to see next too, because it doesn't bring Jake Shields too far up the ladder. If anything, it actually brings him. He's fighting someone who's below him at this point, but Jake Shields shouldn't be fighting someone in the top 3, top 5 of the division, even though he beat someone who was in the top 5 of the division, only because it wasn't a dominant, impressive victory. But you guys read my mind, because the next topic I want to talk about is the co-main event of the evening. We had rising Brazilian welterweight Eric Silva taking on longtime gatekeeper of the welterweight division, Dong-Hyun Kim. Dong-Hyun Kim, he dominated the first round with a superior grappling, but in the second, Eric Silva turned the tide. He had Dong-Hyun Kim hurt. He could have finished that fight. He tried to go for a takedown. He had his back. He tried to go for the takedown, and Kim held on to the cage, which definitely is a huge game changer during that second round, because just seconds after that, Dong-Hyun Kim was able to land an overhand left just out of the blue that connected on Eric Silva right on the button on the jaw and put him out cold on the canvas. It was a candidate for knockout of the year. It was one of the craziest moments all year. Up there as one of the craziest MMA moments in a long time, because I did not see that coming at all. I didn't think Dong-Hyun Kim could knock anything out, for that matter. And the fact that he knocked Eric Silva out the way he did was just wow. And I was just in shock when he did it. I did not have any words. Dong-Hyun Kim, though, he's kind of floating now in I'd say the lower top 10. If he's top 10, he's number 10, number 9. But he's breaking in there. There are other guys, though, at least 9 other guys, 8 other guys above him. Dong-Hyun Kim, does he deserve a top 10 welterweight next?
I think yeah, he does. After beating, top 10, and that's a lot. 10 fighters is a lot. I think he could get someone, ranked maybe 8 or 9, maybe even 7 or 6, after a performance like that. So, and, he fought, Eric Silva is a very good fighter, and to knock out a very good fighter is hard to do. So, after, a performance like that, I'd like to see him fight someone in the, in the 6 to 10 around there ranking. So, yeah, definitely.
Going into the Eric Silva fight, I think his stock was very underrated. I mean, the guy's only lost twice in his career, one to one of the best strikers we have in the UFC, and Carlos Khan, and another to Maia, which was more because he had a muscle spasm early in the fight and couldn't go on. So I mean, I really think Kim is a top guy. We didn't really know him power, or at least I didn't know him for knockout power until he did what he did to Eric Silva. Which, yeah, you're right. Silva's a good fighter. I mean, we saw a war with him and Fitch. So for Kim to march out there and put him out, I think he definitely should get a top guy like a Shields, or I know the UFC doesn't like putting winners against losers as far as their last fight, but maybe the loser of Brown Condit or Lawler McDonald, because I think Kim offers an interesting challenge too.
Moving on, Eric Silva, he kind of rose up the ranks a little too quickly. He came in the UFC, had a quick knockout win. I believe it was over Luis Ramos, and everyone was immediately on the hype train. Oh my God, Eric Silva, great, fantastic, destroyer. He's so well-rounded. He trains with Anderson Silva. This is a future champion. And I did buy into the hype. I believe that this is a guy who would contend for the UFC belt. And that being said, I'm not saying he'll never contend for the UFC belt. He's still very young, and he will improve. But I personally feel he was kind of brought up just a little too quickly. They kind of threw him to the wolves in his fourth or third. I think it was his 4th UFC fight. He was fighting for John Fitch, who was a guy who you could argue was just, I mean, his only loss before that was GSP and Johnny Hendricks in that quick knockout loss, which up until then we didn't know if it was a fluke or not. So Eric Silva's been brought up very fast, and he's still so young, but I'm going to get your take. Eric Silva, did he kind of get too much too fast?
Now that we see him, lose like that, I'd have to say that he probably was. I gotta admit, after, his first and second fight in the UFC, I was like, whoa, this guy's amazing. I jumped on a bandwagon, like, oh, yeah, he's great. But, yeah, he may have, gone up too quickly, now that we see when he gets to, like, elite level fighter. I mean, everyone in the UFC is elite, but, the top guys, like John Fitch, you could say, you see that he can't hang with them just yet. So I think he just needs time to mature, and he'll definitely, get to that level where he can beat the top guys.
I actually disagree. I mean, if you watched the Fitch Silva fight, that was a very close fight. I think it won fight of the night. And the matchup against Kim, I actually thought Silva was very smart. Joe Silva was very smart to make Eric Silva versus Kim, because it was 2 black belts in judo, and if if anyone was expected to get the knockout in that fight, it was Silva. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think he was brought up too fast. I mean that straight that Kim hit, blasted him with could have ended anybody's night. And I think Silva will for a long time be a part of that top 20, and if he gets better, top 10 of the welterweight division.
He's definitely got so much time to improve, and he's really, really talented. He's got almost every aspect of the game. He needs to work on his cardio a little bit. He needs to work on his wrestling a little bit, and then he'll be just an absolute killer in that division. He already is. Since we're talking about him, I mean, they both showed weaknesses in this fight. They both showed areas where they can improve. So, what can they do? What can Dong-Hyun Kim and Eric Silva do to better their game?
Well, I'm not too sure about what exactly they could do, but I think they could just both, just get back in the gym as soon as possible and work on all aspects. I mean, if there's one thing, I guess Eric Silva, he tends to keep his hands very low, and I think he could work on that. That's something his coaches could talk to him about, keeping your hands a little bit higher. But as far as Dong-Hyun Kim, I'm not too sure. He could work on all aspects.
Yeah, Silva, I think Silva's still a little young and wild-eyed. Might be a little too aggressive. Might need to learn to dial it back just a little bit and be a little bit more calculating. But I mean, he is a really well-rounded fighter. Like Kim is too. I mean, Kim is a great grappler, and I mean, you always can work on your takedown defense, or working jujitsu off of the bottom. But for Kim, I would just say he's got to work on his striking defense, work better on work work better on rolling out of punches and sort of staying away from punches, because Kim definitely can get hit. We saw him get knocked out by a Condit. If Kim, really turns into a defensive striker and is really hard to hit, he's going to be an incredibly tough puzzle to solve.
He's definitely rising up the ranks and not far away from getting into that top 7, top 6 of the division. He's just got to get a couple more good wins, and he'll be right there, and maybe one day he will fight for that UFC belt. Before we get to the sad note, the bad note, the dark note, I want to wish a happy birthday to our very own Officer Allen. He turned 29 today, just 25 minutes ago, his local time. So happy birthday, Allen. I have no clue if you're listening. You're probably not listening, but if you are, call in. Happy 29. Husamar Palhares, he made his welterweight debut against Mike Pierce. Mikey Pierce has been kind of floating around right outside the top 10, a guy who I believe should have been in the top 10 because he's got very close fights against Josh Koscheck, Johnny Hendricks, Fitch even. He in that third round, if you all remember that, we're dating back a couple years there. But Husamar Palhares, he beat Pierce. He submitted him with a heel hook 31 seconds into the first round. And after locking in the submission, Pierce, he tapped right away. And he tapped about 8 or 9 times, maybe even more than that, before Palhares finally released the hold. And because of it, Palhares was not awarded the submission of the night bonus. And I just want to say, actually, that this isn't the first time this has happened. He was suspended by the New Jersey Athletic Commission for keeping a heel hook too long after UFC 111. So this isn't the first time this happened. And he didn't get submission tonight because of it. And he was the only submission on the entire card, which is kind of surprising. You got a card in Brazil, and there's only one submission. Yet he did not get the bonus. Plus, he was suspended by the Athletic Commission for, I believe, 90 days. The icing on the cake, however, was Dana White announced on ESPN to Jeremy Schaap that Husamar Palhares is banned now from the UFC. He has been cut. He will not fight for the UFC again, so he says. This cut is very interesting. It's a touchy subject because on one end, yes, action needed to be taken. And being cut from the UFC, I do not think is a bad reaction. Personally, I think that was the smart move. Banning him from the UFC, I don't know. You never say never in anything. You just don't ever do it. I mean, Dana White said we'd never see Josh Barnett again in the UFC, and here he was just about a month or two ago knocking out Frank Mir at UFC 164. So you can never say never in anything. But Husamar, on the flip side, he got a big win. He's very good at what he does when he gets that heel hook. He's the, I wouldn't say he's the best grappler, but he's definitely the most dangerous guy grappling wise in the UFC, because if he gets you, it's over and you're going to sit on the shelf, because he is devastating. He cranks hard and he puts people on the shelf. But did he deserve to be cut? I think yes. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
No, I don't believe he deserved to be cut. You know, uh, like Chael. One of my favorite quotes that Chael says: "You don't deserve anything in life. You get what you get. You get what you work for. Things happen. What blah blah blah, whatever." Uh, I don't believe that he needed to be cut. I think some disciplinary actions could have been, he could have just got a suspension or something. But I don't believe that he needs to be cut from the UFC. I think it's a little extreme. That's all really. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence between both of you because I think the cut, all in all, I do agree with it because I think the message of fighter safety is key. And, you don't want to be a guy in the UFC fighting Husamar Paul Harris because you're afraid that the referee might run in and he's gonna crank your ACL apart. It's just something that, for the sake of other fighters in the division, I feel like Dana, pardon me, probably felt pretty pressured for it. At the same time, I think Husamar's apology was genuine. I don't think he was acting maliciously. You watch, it slowed down. Yeah, he should have let go when Pierce started tapping, but you go until the referee stops it. And from when the referee dove in to when Paul Harris let go of the lock, I think it was something like 1.05 seconds, which, when you think about it, isn't that much of a delay. And I think if it was only this one incident, no, he wouldn't have warranted a cut. But the fact that he has done this before and the fact that, we didn't hear about it, but in all likelihood, he was probably on thin ice going into the Pierce fight. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back, because this has happened multiple times. Ladies and gentlemen, though, before I get to my next question, which will once again be about Paul Harris, we have now joining us on the call our resident conspiracy theorist. We have the Alex Jones of MMA, the man, the myth, the legend. You can catch him on Twitter at the Aunt Jimmy Show. Follow him, ladies and gentlemen. Check out the Word on the Street podcast every Tuesday. I don't know if there's ever a set time, but if you go to his Twitter, he'll give you all the information. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I give you Ramses.
What's up, guys? Sorry I'm coming in a little late to the party here, but, I'm sitting here. I'm recovering from a bad stomach flu, which I got contracted from some sort of family cooking or something this weekend. I'm sitting here trying to sleep. I put on the Final Round podcast from Ross Finkelstein. I'm listening here, you guys are talking about Mike Pierce's unfortunate, if you even want to call it a fight, I call it an ambush against Husamar Paul Harris. And then I hear Jake from the MMA podcast talking some nonsense about how, he didn't really hold it too long. Give me a break, man. Look, Jake, this is a case where, they cut him for a reason. Where there's smoke, there's fire, man. When I saw this go down, when I saw Husamar tweak that leg, you guys, anybody that knows me knows that I'm going through I got a screwed up knee myself, man. When I saw that happen to good old Mike Pierce, man, I damn near puked. I felt like I was going to vomit watching that, man, because I know that pain. I understand it immediately, man. I'm on the phone. I'm making calls. I'm like, Dana, Uncle Dana, this ain't gonna work. You gotta do something here. And guess what? He did. I'm not saying I got Husmar and Paul Harris fired, but I'm saying I did. That is the word on the street. How can you people even defend this animal? He is a psychopath. All right. Something happens if he does it once, holds it too long. The leg lock. If it just happens once, all right, it's a fluke, it's a freak, it's an accident. Happens twice, it's a little suspicious. Happens three times, it's a pattern. Happens four times, it is a program. Do you understand me, people? That's right. That's what I got to say. That's the word on the street. Paul Harris, see you later. You stink. I hope the bad things in life happen to you and only you. You deserve everything. I hope you get knocked out in a domestic squabble. Word on the street.
Word on the street, ladies and gentlemen. My next question, and I guess I want to start with you, Ramses. I want to start with you because I need to hear it from you. Will Husimar Paul Harris ever return to the UFC? I know Dana White said he'll never return. He banned him, but we've seen it before. He said, "Oh, they're not coming back." Like Josh Barnett, he came back, so it's definitely possible. But what do you think? What do you all think? We'll start with Ramses. Will Husimar Paul Harris return to the UFC?
This Paul Harris son of a bitch would have to go on like a 10-fight win streak to even get another chance. Because let's face it, he destroys fighters. Everyone knows it now. The word is out. He proved it again. After that was what he was known for. All right, he had a reputation for doing this. He proved it once again. So, and the thing is, if you're Dana White, you're the UFC from a business standpoint. He's putting your fighters out of commission. He's hurting you. He's hurting your business. And anytime he does that to a top tier guy, which is all he's been fighting, if he puts him out of business, he's screwing you over. He's screwing the fighter over. He's screwing with the contracts. People aren't going to get to fight it. You got to pay out a shitload of medical insurance. It's not smart to keep him around, especially when he doesn't really. I'm sorry, he's not that big of a name in the U.S. I don't know how big he is in Brazil. I don't see too many people defending him from down there. So I can't imagine that he's really worth that much. He's not worth this. He's ruining people, and it's just honestly, just when you break it down, unsportsmanlike. That's it.
Yeah, I think he could return, but like Ramsey said, he'd have to prove himself to be like, wanted in the UFC, like they're not just gonna bring him back just because. He has to be, valued or something like that. So yeah, I think he could, but he just needs to show that he should be in the UFC.
I don't understand what's going on. Ramses is calling in saying he's disagreeing with me, even though the 2 points he made that Dana is cutting him off of the welterweights, and because the fact that he's a repeat offender. Those were the 2 points that I made about the cut.
No,
So
no. Hold
I'm
on,
pretty
hold
sure
on,
you
Jake. I'm
agree
sorry,
with
and
me.
I'm not going to be here too long. I just called in to pop in. I'm half asleep here. But no, Jake, you were saying some stuff like, "No, he didn't hold it too long. It was only a second." You
No,
were
no,
saying some apologetic bullcrap, man, and I'm not taking it. That's why I
no.
called in.
I was
You
prefacing
rousted me.
I was prefacing with the other side of the argument. And if you don't
There is
mind,
no
before
other
you
side. He's a
railroad me
scum.
again,
I'm not here too long.
Husamar, I think he's gonna do very well in other divisions or in other organizations. He's not going up against top guys. He'll probably move back up to middleweight. And I mean, we were talking about it before the show. Ross, you were saying that probably be matched up against Yushin Okami in the middleweights over at World Series of Fighting. I thought that would be a pretty interesting fight, but that's all I got on Husamar. God forbid I bring up any sort of argument that might go against what Ramses has got to say.
Don't play games, Jake. He's a dirty fighter. He is a borderline psychopath. They were trying to say some crap like, it's not his fault. He's just like, he's slow mentally. He's Lenny from Of Mice and Men. He's Forrest Gump. I ain't buying it. you shouldn't buy it either, Jake, man.
I
I
don't.
just want you to know
You're
that after
putting words in my mouth.
man,
I've never said he's
now listen, Jake,
slow.
man. Look, I didn't get up for nothing, but I do forgive you for this, man. I will forgive you for this. And shout out to Mike Pierce. I hope it ain't as bad as we think. I hope he rehabs it real good. He is going to need rehab. This was a total clear-cut case of just unsportsmanlike conduct, abuse, too much. He got what he deserved. This was an example well set by Dana White. I can't praise him in the UFC enough, man. This was the right call. Firing him altogether. I didn't even see that coming. Maybe a DQ, but firing him, good call.
It's getting heated, ladies and gentlemen, right here on the final round. We got the Word on the Street podcast. We got the MMA podcast. Things are getting crazy. We got fights breaking out over Husamar Paul Harris. That's how big this topic is. That's how dark this situation is. But it takes two to tango in a fight, and you got a winner and you got a loser. And sadly, Mike Pierce, Team Darkside's Mike Pierce, didn't walk away with the W. He was submitted in 31 seconds, and I feel personally that he fought with the absolute worst game plan you could possibly fight with. To beat Husamar Paul Harris, the key is stay on the feet, don't let it go to the ground, and knock him out, because his striking's not very good. Mike Pierce is a better striker. He's got knockout power. He could have put his lights out on the feet. Instead, he decides to bull rush him and go for that takedown. And, of course, Paul Harris loves that because he's going to drop and try and get a leg lock. He'd love to go to the ground, and actually, he'll love being on his back for you. He doesn't care. He just wants your leg, and he will twist and turn your knee and tear it. It was just a terrible game plan by Mike Pierce. I have no clue what he was thinking, so I need to ask you guys because I need some help. What was Mike Pierce thinking?
Well, if you ask me, man, I actually have no answer. I'm pretty perplexed too. It seems like his strategy was to bull rush him and just try to do something before he got a chance to do what he did, lock that leg. But unfortunately, it looks like Paul Harris's game plan was to bull rush Mike Pierce with the leg lock. So it looks like they both came out just right off the bat, and yep, somebody won. It was like a tug of war. It stinks. Mike Pierce should have backed off when he saw that Paul Harris was immediately just going. He had only you figure out, okay, he's only going to do this. He's only going for the leg. Let's kind of circle away a little bit. Maybe just try to put some hits on him. Maybe just the thing is, Mike Pierce, he knew he had to finish him, though. That's the problem, though. Mike Pierce knew he had to. How many times can he win? And then people criticize him and forget about it an hour later. He knew he needed to finish in this fight. So that's probably why he came out just looking for one. That's unfortunate. But I have no idea why he didn't jump out of that damn shit when he was getting his leg pulled on. I have no idea.
Yeah, first I have to say, you would think if someone's fighting Paul Harris, they would make sure that, their leg lock, heel hook, knee bar, defense is up to par, which Mike Pierce looked like he didn't know what to do once Paul Harris got a hold of his leg. But I couldn't really tell, what Mike Pierce was trying to do. It was obvious that Paul Harris wanted to just run in there and take his leg, because that's what he did. But I don't know what Mike Pierce was thinking. I'm lost, just like you.
First off, I'm on to you, Ramsey. So I know you're trying to jam up my cell signal because I'm disagreeing with you, kicking me off the Skype call. As far as Pierce's game plan goes, it was, obviously not a wise one. I don't know about him training his leg lock D, because I'm sure he did, and I'm sure that it was just a matter of Quino just really being a master at that one thing. But to get himself in that position, I mean, Pierce should have known that if he kept it standing, he could have knocked out Usmar on the feet. And we all know that if Pierce didn't want it to, that fight would have never gone to the mat. So, yeah, I really have no idea.
Hey, you know what? I just thought of something, guys. I just wanted to mention that a certain coach friend of ours who actually works with Mike Pierce did go a little. He was talking about how Mike Pierce's current training coach wasn't the most multi-dimensional coach there could be for him. He did have some things to say about that. I just thought I'd like to point that out. I mean, you never know what kind of training you get. And someone who we all know very well did point that out to us before this fight. Sad to see it play it out like it did.
Yeah, that is a very, very, very good point. We did hear from a certain someone about Mike Pierce's training, and that definitely raises a red flag. It's a sad situation. There were lots of fights on this card. So many good fights. For one, the fight that I looked forward to the most, the one that started the night, Rafael Sunsao versus TJ Dillashaw. I'd love to break it down, but we just simply do not have the time here on the final round. We got to get pushed through. We got producers telling us we got to move. So we will dissect the rest of it tomorrow on the MMA podcast. Follow the MMA podcast on Twitter for more details. I'm not sure if he's jumping off right now, so I'm going to ask him, Ramsey, was that all you came for? Are you leaving us right now?
Yes, sir. I got to jump off. This is the first time calling in with a phone, so I apologize. I don't even know how it sounded. I tried to search for some sort of mute function, could not find it. But yes, I had to say something about the Mike Pierce thing, man. And yeah, man. Thanks for putting on the show. It relaxed me, man. I'm trying to get to sleep, man. I've been in a lot of pain this weekend. So thank you, Ross. Thank you, the final round. Thank you, Jake from the MMA podcast. And yeah, dude, good to hear from you, man.
Ladies and
I'm
gentlemen.
out of here, guys. Word on the street.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend. He's out of here, coming to you from the word on the street. He is Ramses. Thank you, Ramses, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on because we've got to talk about Glory. Glory debuted last night on Spike. Glorious heavyweight tournament, no pun intended. But I'm going to try something different here. I love kickboxing. I love talking about kickboxing. But I want to make this show not just about me. I want to make it about the panelists. I want to make it about the lovely human beings that we have right here on the show in Jake and Yao. So I'm going to pass it to them. I want them to give me just a recap right now, give you guys the recap on this card. So let's start off. He volunteered to go first. Ladies and gentlemen, giving you a recap on this heavyweight tournament. Kickboxing enthusiast, future UFC champion, future Glory champion, Yao the Truth. Yao, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that. First, I got to start off by saying, if you've never seen a kickboxing fight, just look at one right after the show is over. I mean, what I was really impressed with Glory, it was their debut on Spike TV, and I was really impressed with the whole event, the way they had the interviews set up, the entrances, the introductions. The whole event was beautiful. I bet it was even like better live. So yeah, the whole tournament was great. Anytime you have heavyweight kickboxers, you always expect fireworks. These are like the best kickboxers in the world. But really, the entire event was just so well put together. They have professionals. It was great. I enjoyed every single moment of it. Seeing even Tyrone Spong come out and do what he does best. Kickboxing wise. So really, the entire event, I was very, very pleased with it. Jake?
Yeah, Spalling definitely. He is undoubtedly the number one light heavyweight in the world. Left no questions in the rematch against the Australian. As far as the heavyweight Grand Prix went, it was really interesting. It started off the very first fight. You had the favorite of the tournament against the underdog of the tournament, and the number 2 heavy in the world, and we may as well call him the number 1 because the number 1's retired, in Sammy Schultz. But you have Gohan Saki, who everyone thought was going to win the entire tournament, and he goes out there in the very first fight, a controversial, what was called a knockdown. That was really a slip. But he went up against the underdog, Rico Verhoeven, the young 24-year-old, 6'5" Dutch kickboxer, and Verhoeven went out there and shocked the world. No one thought he was going to beat Saki, and he went out there and beat Saki, which moved him to the finals. In the other semifinal match, you had Gita defeat Anderson Silva, not that Anderson Silva, but Anderson Braddock Silva pretty early. I think it was in the first or second round. I think it was the first round. But Gita moved on to the finals, and then we had Gita versus Verhoeven in a fight. Everyone was saying this is the greatest kickboxing match of all time. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it was definitely an exciting match. Gita started off the better fighter, but Verhoeven really roared back, and he took the judge's nod and came out of nowhere. He was the least likely to win the entire tournament, and he won the entire tournament. I mean, the guy is just an absolute monster. Like you watch him fight Saki, like the dude's knees and calves are as thick as Saki's thighs. He's a 24, definitely not. I wouldn't call him a monster. I would say if he fights Saki 5 times, it's very close. I would say he loses to Schilt, but the fact he's 24, I mean this guy, we're looking at the future of heavyweight kickboxing, and Rico Verhoeven. It was a really exciting heavyweight Grand Prix.
It was an absolute amazing night. I give so much credit to Glory. I give so much credit to Spike and Viacom for putting on this show, because for their first show on Spike TV, they brought out all the stops. They did a fantastic job, and I commend them. And you brought up Semi Schilt and said, well, I guess he's not the number one because he's retired, but I don't know yet. I still think it's too soon to take him out of that number one slot. He has beaten already Verhoeven, however you pronounce the last name. So having a W over him, to me, you just can't put Rico Verhoeven at the number one spot. Even though Semi Schilt is so-called, quote-unquote, retired, you never know. Combat sports, anything happens. Guy retires, 2 weeks later, they come out of retirement, 2 months later, 2 years later. It doesn't matter. Obviously, 2 years down the line, we'll know. But only just a few months, that's a little different. So now that I mentioned that, do you think Semi Schilt still should be the number one heavyweight Yao?
At this point, no, because you have so many top guys at this point, But to determine that, he needs to just come out and fight, whoever is considered the number one guy at this point. Because I mean, everyone has their own ranking system and everything. So to really truly determine that, he needs to come out and fight whoever the top guy is.
Yeah, I mean, if it's one of these sorts of retirements like a Nick Diaz or a BJ Penn, where he himself is like going back and forth, I don't know. I would say, all right, maybe, but I mean, Sammy Schilt, like, he's being forced to hang up his gloves. It's a heart thing. I've looked into it, and apparently it's not very likely that Schilt's going to come back. I mean, he himself is saying that he's probably not ever going to fight again. Schilt was like still in the mix, talking, oh yeah, I want to fight them. So yeah, maybe, but as far as I see it, even though I think Schilt beats Verhoeven, and Schilt, if he was active, definitely deserves the number one spot in kickboxing, but he's not. He's inactive, so I don't put him anywhere on the rankings just because of that.
Very fair point indeed. Final question about Glory. Like I said before, I was very impressed by the production of the show, very impressed just by overall everything about it. Now that kickboxing is starting to, it's now on cable television. They have a deal, so we're going to see it more often. It's getting into the public eye here in America. What do you want to see from Glory next? What can they do to better the brand? What can they do to reach out to a new audience and to kind of just expand? Could it be some sort of maybe, it sounds weird to say, some sort of like cross promotion with Bellator? Could it be a pay-per-view? What could bring them to the next level?
That's a hard question, but I think at this point, what they could do is just continue to put on great productions like they did last night. You know, they just made their Spike TV debut, so you know, these next couple promotions that they have going on, events, if they can just make those better and better and better, they're on the right track. But as far as, you know, in the future, who knows? You know, who knows? But I think right now they could just continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I hate to agree with you so much, but yeah, dude. I mean, I'm very impressed with what we're doing, and maybe down the road a pay per view might be more viable. But currently, I mean, I think Glory should just keep on doing what they're doing. You know, the production value is excellent. I thought Duke was an awesome commentator. The visual aspect of it's awesome. The fighters they're bringing in is awesome. The fact that they're putting it on mainstream television to get that audience before they start charging for pay-per-views is great. And I'm just really glad, you know, when K1 sort of folded, I was really worried because I love watching kickboxing, and you know, this makes me very happy about the future of the sport.
Yeah, we're all kickboxing enthusiasts. We all love kickboxing. It's such an entertaining sport, and not enough people appreciate the art of kickboxing. So hopefully this will bring it into that next level and just really start making these MMA fans more into combat sports fans. And I feel like if you're a fan of MMA, you shouldn't just indulge in MMA because there's so much with MMA. You've got all the aspects. You got kickboxing in MMA. You got jiu-jitsu in MMA. You got wrestling in MMA. So I think by watching and becoming a fan of the individual disciplines and the individual sports, it makes you a better fan in general. It makes you a better and more knowledgeable MMA fan because you go, wow, look at that. You watch something in an MMA fight and you go, wow, look at that body kick. Oh my God, that's like insane. Oh my God, you can recognize what's going on a lot better. If you want to hear what I have to say about the Glory stuff, I'm not going to break it down right now because we're very short on time. We actually have to end the show within the next like 5 to 10 minutes, and we still have one more topic to cover. So tune in tomorrow, MMA podcast. Like I keep saying, shameless plugs over and over and over again. We got to move along. Last night, the WBO Welterweight Championship of the World was on the line. Timothy Bradley, 30-0, took on boxing legend and number 3 pound-for-pound ranked boxer in the world, Juan Manuel Marquez. It was 12 close rounds of action that saw Bradley use his speed to slowly kind of pick apart Marquez, and the judges awarded a split decision to the WBO champion Bradley, and he improved his record to 31-0, still undefeated. He cemented his position as a top 3 pound-for-pound boxer. This was a matchup of speed versus power, but interestingly enough, it was ultimately Bradley who hurt Marquez multiple times during the fight, especially in the final round, so to speak. At the very end of the round, he had him hurt. So I think Timothy Bradley is just not, even still, not getting the respect that he deserves. He's so good. He's so fast. He reminds me kind of like Floyd. He's not as good as Floyd, but he'll one day reach that level. He may very well become the pound-for-pound king one day, and I'm very interested in seeing a fight between him and Floyd one day down the line if they can settle things between Top Rank and Golden Boy and Mayweather Promotions. But I'll ask you guys, I don't know if Yao saw the fight. I think he said before that he didn't, so I'll throw it to Jake first. Timothy Bradley, will he finally get the respect that he deserves? I don't think he's getting it. I think he needs more respect. He's so good. Is he going to get it?
Yeah, I think he will eventually. You know, this win and the win over Pacquiao are really his keystone wins, and nobody wants to give him credit for the Pacquiao win because it was very controversial. So I think people will start giving him his due. And like you said, Marquez was going for the knockout, and Bradley's jab was just so efficient. He looked so fluid. I uh, I I totally agree with everything you said. I would love to see him fight Floyd eventually. I think that.
Yeah, he will eventually get the respect that he deserves because he's only going to keep winning from here, unless of course we see. I think he beats everyone. I even think he beats Pacquiao in a rematch. Then once he starts fighting someone like Floyd, it'll be very interesting to see because that's two very similar styles, and Floyd's just on another level from everyone in boxing. There's Floyd, and then there's everyone else, or there's like Floyd, then there's someone like a Canelo, and then there's everyone else. He's just so good. But let's not blow smoke up Floyd's ass right now. Let's talk about Juan Manuel Marquez. After the fight, he was disappointed. He felt that he won the fight. Shocker. Every time there's a close fight, he believes he won the fight. Although I do think he should have beaten Pacquiao a couple more times than just that knockout. A couple robberies there, especially the third fight. I thought he definitely won that one. But he was talking about retirement. He said, I'm done. I don't want to fight, especially in Nevada anymore. I think this commission's so corrupt, which it is. We know the Nevada State Athletic Commission is very corrupt. We've heard people just over and over and over again speak out about Keith Kaiser just being a horrible commissioner. You have even the promoters. You've got Dana White. You've got Big John McCarthy, who's one of the most respected people in combat sports in MMA, speaking out against Keith Kaiser. He's just such a terrible commissioner. But Juan Manuel Marquez, he does not want to fight in Nevada anymore. He doesn't want to really fight anymore. He said he's done. He said he's going to retire. But does that really mean anything? Not really, because it's boxing, combat sports, sports in general. You say you're going to retire, and then just a few months down the line, you decide, I should have done this, I should have done that. I can get back in there. I can do it. I can pull it off. I can be a champion. But he is 40 now. He seemed to have found a new strength and conditioning plan because he, like as Chael Sonnen said, went through like a second puberty and just all of a sudden gained so much muscle mass and just completely changed his build. But should Juan Manuel Marquez finally retire from the sport of boxing?
I think it's time. I think he should retire from boxing and not let boxing retire him. He still has his senses. He's not going brain dead or anything. So I think he should retire. I think before he takes any unnecessary damage that he doesn't have to take, I think he should retire.
I don't think so. No. The win against Pacquiao was fairly recent, and that was, like I mentioned, that was the keystone win of his entire career. And I mean, he just fought a top 3 pound for pound guy, and where I think Bradley did win, and it wasn't like a lopsided beatdown. I mean, it was a close fight, and if they fight 10 times, I think Bradley wins it, 6 or 7 times. But I think Marquez is still just too good a fighter to quit, and as far as him saying that the commission's corrupt as far as this fight goes, if he realized that this was a close fight, either he's delusional or there is nobody in his camp that is telling him the truth. It's just filled with a bunch of yes men. Because if he really thinks that he unilaterally one-sided won that fight, like, come on.
Well, it was definitely a close fight. I don't think anyone can dispute that it was close, but it's deceivingly close because you look at a scorecard and you got like maybe 4 rounds that go to Marquez and every other round goes to Bradley. But at the same time, those rounds, it's very difficult to score a fight like that because you got to think, all right, you got a guy who's a little more active, you got a guy who's more powerful. How do you score it? And that's what you get debates, and that's why you have horrible judging. And I disagree with scoring the fight for Marquez. I thought Bradley did win the fight, and this is what I thought. When they were about to go to the decision after that fight, I thought, all right, Timothy Bradley has clearly won this fight. He's done more, he was more active, and he's hurt Marquez a couple times in this fight, something none of us saw coming. So to me, he wins this fight. And that immediately made me think, all right, he's not going to get a unanimous decision, no matter what. It will either be a majority decision or a split decision, but it will not be unanimous. And sure enough, it's a split decision because this day and age with Nevada, with judging, you can guess that if it's just even slightly close, you're going to have very, very, very opinionated, very different scores. But Timothy Bradley, now he moves up the ladder. Now he moves into number 3, number 2 pound for pound. I personally feel he's number 2 pound for pound. I put him above Andre Ward right now, only because Ward has not fought in over a year. And I just feel that as talented as Ward is and as amazing as some of the things he's done is with the Super 6 tournament and all that, Timothy Bradley has a better resume as far as you look at the resume and you go, oh my God, I know that guy. The guy's got victories now over Lamont Peterson, Devin Alexander, Pacquiao, Marquez, Provodnikov. He's just an absolute killer. But he does have the questionable fight with Pacquiao. At the end of the day, it's still a W. It's still a win on his record, and you have to give him credit. He's got a W on his record, no matter how you look at it. So he's still 31-0. The Pacquiao fight could loom, a Pacquiao rematch down the line if he gets past Brandon Rios. That could be definitely a fight in his future. Mike Alvarado fights this Saturday against Ruslan Provodnikov. That's an interesting fight if Alvarado gets past him. Rios, if he gets past Pacquiao, is a good fight. I personally want to see Timothy Bradley fight one of those 3 guys next, either a Pacquiao rematch, Brandon Rios, or Mike Alvarado. I think those are the 3 best candidates for him in Top Rank. Obviously, he's not going to fight anyone who's outside of Top Rank in Golden Boy or Mayweather's. He's not going to fight Mayweather's. So who do you think Timothy Bradley fights next?
I think a Pacquiao rematch would be, realistic, considering, if Pacquiao looks, good and he gets one over Rios, I think a Pacquiao rematch would be great for him.
I think the top rank camp, I think they'll realize that Bradley is a little bit too big a name to fight Alvarado. So yeah, whoever wins Rios Pacquiao, likely Pacquiao, people are gonna want to see that rematch for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one, and just a little side note, like I said before, I do think in a rematch, Timothy Bradley would beat Manny Pacquiao. I think the knockout loss that Pacquiao had over to Marquez, I think that takes like 10 years off your career. The guy was out for so long. He was gone. He got hit, and he was out cold for a solid 2 minutes, just laying that iconic image of him just laying face down on the canvas, lifeless, will forever just stay in my brain as one of those wow moments in combat sports. And Marquez won the Champion of the Decade belt for that fight, and that he truly deserves it for that, because that was incredible. But let's move on. That was the final topic we had tonight, but that does not mean, ladies and gentlemen, the show is over, because you are listening to The Final Round, hosted by yours truly, Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. Catch me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. We still have our signature segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen. We have The Final Round, and tonight we are going to give you a special edition, just like we did last time. Last time we had John Jones Super Fight Edition, because we were coming off of the Jones fight with Gustafsson. So tonight we are giving you a very interesting one. We talked about it before the show. We came up with the topic. It's going to be a little controversial, and I do not condone street fights, but tonight's topic is going to be street fights. It's going to be, basically, we're going to do mixed martial arts versus kickboxing. We're going to do boxing versus MMA, and we're going to do kickboxing versus, we're going to do boxing versus MMA. You get the point. We got a lot of things. I'm getting tired here. I need to go to bed, so let's wrap this up. First fight on the docket, we have kickboxing master Giorgio Petroisin, he's fighting Anthony Pettis in a back alley somewhere in the streets of Newark, New Jersey. It's dark. It's 2:30 in the morning. Who walks away standing? Who's left in a pool of their own blood?
I gotta go with Giorgio Petrosian. I think he gets it done, and I think he puts Anthony Pettis' face in the ground.
No way, Pettis. Even in a kickboxing match, I have Pettis. Pettis has dirty kicks, and don't even get me started with the advantage Pettis has if it goes to the ground. Pettis all day.
I'm going to go with Anthony Pettis. I think Anthony Pettis can submit him in this fight. I think this fight does make it to the ground. I think Pettis throws up a triangle or something, flying triangle. Second fight, kickboxing versus boxing. We've got the man with the fast hands in Gokhan Saki versus the man who I just cannot stand to watch fight, and Vladimir Klitschko, the heavyweight champion of the world. Who wins this back alley brawl? 2:30 in the morning, New York City. No one's around. It's pitch black. Someone's got to walk away with their head held high. The other one's going to fall to the ground. Who is it? Who wins?
I gotta go with Gokhan Saki. I think he looks like he's been in a couple of street fights before, so I gotta go with Gokhan Saki.
I'm once again going against you. I have Klitschko.
The last fight we have here for you tonight on the final round, well, hypothetical fight. It's not actually happening yet. It is pound-for-pound kingpin in boxing, Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus a guy who I believe is actually currently, and it's controversial, the pound-for-pound best fighter in MMA, Jose Aldo. Back alley brawl on the streets of Brazil, in the slums of Brazil. It's 3:30 in the morning. No one's around. No one's got a weapon, though. Someone usually has a weapon. No one has a weapon here. Who wins? Floyd Mayweather, Jose Aldo.
I gotta go with the man, the legend, Floyd Mayweather Jr. I think he gets it done, and I think he leaves Aldo in the streets of Brazil.
It's going down in the favelas. And yeah, I'm sorry, but your boy Floyd literally gets murdered. His body left limp in the streets of the favela as all the Brazilians celebrate, and nobody misses Floyd except for all the money-grubbing people in TMT.
No one misses Floyd. I would miss Floyd, even though I'm not a huge fan of the guy. I went back and forth on this, but I have to go with Jose Aldo in the end, only because if this fight's taking place on the streets of Brazil, Jose Aldo is going to clinch him. He's going to use his basic jiu-jitsu defense that you learn your first couple weeks of jiu-jitsu class, and he's going to submit the man and neutralize his opponent, although Floyd could catch him, obviously, if he can land that barrage of shots early on. Ladies and gentlemen, that being said, that is all we have for you today on the final round. We're going to sign off. I am Ross Finkelstein. I'm exhausted. I'm stumbling on my words. I can't even put sentences together. It's 2:13 a.m. here. It's almost my bedtime. E before the L, blah, 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 Long Island, New York. Catch Jake on Twitter, at the MMA Podcast. Catch Yao on Twitter, at Yao_the truth. I don't really have time to throw it to those two guys to talk, so just follow them. Check out Yao. He's going to be competing in just now 6 days, it pretty much is, technically, at the Abu Dhabi trials. Support him. Follow him on Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.